Thank you everyone for their patience. We're running a few minutes late because of some technical difficulties. The virtual meeting of the special meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, February 28th, 2022 will be called to order at 7:05. At this time, would you all join us for the invocation given by Alderwoman Finlayson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we all bow our heads, close our eyes, and open our hearts? Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you thanking you and praising you for the great gifts of our city. Thank you for bringing us through very difficult times. Lord, as we embark on our responsibility today, grant us the gifts of wisdom, justice, counsel, and fortitude, that we will result in a strong and healthy and sustainable city. These blessings I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation
under
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking forward to being back together again in council chambers so we can get that right. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Here.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Here.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Here.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Present.
Alderman Shandemeyer?
Present.
Alderman Gay? Alderman Savage?
Present.
Alderman Arnett?
Present.
Thank you.
You, Mr. City Attorney, please present the first item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The first item is approval of the agenda.
This time I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye. Can you hear me?
thanks. I think I got everybody.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is ceremonial item, Historic Annapolis.
Okay, I would like to bring forward with audio the President of Historic Annapolis, Robert Clark, has been an invaluable partner. We would not be where we are today without the tremendous effort that was put in through that organization. And we wanted to give him prime position to say a few words today. Please come forward, Robert.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the City Council. I'm grateful to be here. Robert Clark, CEO and President of Historic Annapolis. Our organization is in support of two important legislative proposals going before the City Council this evening. R922, the Annapolis Parking Concession Agreement, and O122 Fire Prevention Code Sprinkler System. This is a pivotal moment in the history of our wonderful historic city. We all know Annapolis is important for many reasons, not the least of which is its historic significance in its role in the founding of our nation. We are proud that much of our historic district remains intact. Collectively, we have a responsibility to care for these historic treasures as best we can. Historic seaport towns all over the country are faced with rising seas and resiliency challenges. This legislation provides a funding mechanism that is forward-thinking with an end goal of protecting historic resources sitting at the water's edge. We support the advice provided by outside experts on this complex financing arrangement that will ultimately fund the urgently required resilience project at City Dock. Looking forward to 2026, when the nation celebrates the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, with this plan in place, we will be poised to be a green, resilient, strong from a 4-hour drive, which is 5 states and 17 million people, but also serves as a community asset for all of us locals. Additionally, Annapolis will serve as a model for other vulnerable coastal communities. The sprinkler legislation as well recognizes the need to be proactive in combating threats to our historic landmark district. Not only are fires in historic buildings devastating to business and placing lives at risk, they destroy irreplaceable historic fabric that is part of our heart and soul of our city. We're also in support of the amendment presented by Alderman Arnett that pertains to the retention of the wiring assistance revolving fund to provide additional financial incentives to property owners. Historic Annapolis is proud to work with the city and the property owners to help advance both pieces of legislation. Thank you very much for permitting me to make some remarks.
Thank you so much, Robert. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is a proclamation, ID 4122, proclamation to Pearl Christine Jeanette Tyndale Swan.
I was honored to meet and spend some time with Miss Swan on her 100th birthday. I'm going to pass it over to Alderman Pindell Charles. I think we have some video of that fun moment on her front porch. Can I get you to fire up the video, Julian, and hand it over to Alderman Pindell Charles?
Alderman Pindell Charles, do you want to go first?
Yes, certainly. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And yes, it was indeed a blessed day on Wednesday, February the 23rd, 1922 and 2022, when my aunt and godmother, Pearl Christine Jeanette Pindell Swan, was born. And she's been a lifelong resident of Parole, and she's done a lot of amazing things. And on Wednesday, the city declared Pearl Christine Jeanette Pindell Swan Day in the city of Annapolis. And we had the mayor, the county executive, Senator Elvrith, on that porch on a Wednesday. And Julian has the video, the short part of the video. I think the total video was about 17 minutes, but Julian has a short snippet of my aunt giving remarks. Thank you, Julian.
But I want to thank everyone for coming to make this day a good one. This is a good start for today, and always I will remember what has taken place February 23rd, 1922. But anyway, I want to say thank you once and once again, because I would not have been here if it wasn't for the good Lord that looked out for me and has blessed me for many days. So I just want to say, you all can come back again next year. Next year. Do I know everybody here?
Oh, everybody knows you. That's all that's important.
I think so. I appreciate what has gone on. And I thank you so much again. And what else can I say? What more can I say? But thanks for everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Swan has seen it all.
One thing I want to mention, Mr. Lyles, you know Miss Swan's son-in-law well. Duffy
and
Otha Thompson.
yes, my good friend. And I need to get over there to see Miss Swan too and say hello. Look forward
Yes.
to it.
All right.
Right, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is ID 3322, City Council citation to Jan F. Lee.
Right. And I can read the citation. I have the citation here to present to Mr. Lee. Are anyone in
Miss
the
Lee,
back?
Miss Lee,
Sorry, Miss Lee, sorry.
Miss Lee. That's okay.
Is anybody here on that one, Julian?
Yeah, we do have Miss Lee with us.
Okay, Miss Lee, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right. I'm sorry they wrote down Mr. Lee. You're clearly not a Mr. Lee, according to with your beautiful picture there. So on behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis, we are pleased to confer upon you this City Council citation in recognition of your work in organizing and promoting the annual Kunta Kinte Festival in Annapolis. As board president of Kunta Kinte Celebrations, Inc., you have worked tirelessly to recruit vendors, entertainers, and artists each year, increasing the number of participants. Even during the difficult period of the pandemic, you found ways to bring the festival to the community by streaming the festival online. In addition, you have provided opportunities to help members of the community trace their own roots through genealogical workshops, provided youth scholarships, hosted the Global Journey for Children Scholars contest, and brought workshops on urban gardening and much more. We thank you for all you've done to enhance and elevate the Kunta Kinte Festival. We appreciate the work and we truly appreciate you, Ms. Lee. And if you'd like to say a few words, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know why my camera is sideways, but but thank you so much. Yes, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a moment and just thank you all for this honor and acknowledgement. It's really been a pleasure. It's definitely been a benefit to my life and added to my trajectory in this world. And I want to thank the City of Annapolis for their support of the festival, and I want to just hope for that continued partnership. I'll be sending an email for a meeting soon. But thank you all, and I definitely want to note the support of Alderwomen Pendell Charles and Finlayson. Thank you all so much for your support of the festival over the years. If you all don't mind, I'm just going to read through. We have a small group of dedicated volunteers that helps to make this happen, and I would not be able to do it without them. So I'm going to be speedy and read through. Hopefully they are joining us and watching us tonight, but I'm just going to read through here alphabetically. Carolyn Young, Cornell Walker, Dee Davis, Daniel Moshala, Debbie Wood, Dr. Debbie Wood, Diane Pergerson, Enoch Collison Lee, Danielle Young, Herb Lee Jr., Herb Lee III, Shamika, and she goes by Miss Miki Divas Inc. Incorporated, Keith Rao, Reverend Keith Rao, Mike Stump, Robert Hector III, Soleil Bailey, Sky Bailey, Tamika Phillips, and Jan Mitchell. Thank you all so much. And please save the date for this year's festival. It's on Saturday, September the 24th, and you can visit kuntakinte.org for more information.
Thank you so much, Jan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item.
Yes, the next item is the City Council citation ID 3422 to Ms. Joanne Baum.
Right, Joanne, are you out there?
Mr. Mayor, it does not seem that Joanne is here.
Okay. I will pass that on then when I see her next. Next up, we have Lawrence Harris. See if she jumps on before then.
Also, it seems like there was a little confusion for Mr. Harris as well, Mr. Mayor, that he was supposed to be here the next meeting, but.
Okay. Well, I will leave these citations
Julian.
aside. And then if we end up representing, we can do that. Thank you. But thank you for all that both of those people have done for the city. We truly appreciate you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with update from the mayor.
Right. Good evening. I want to start out tonight with a little bit of sad news. Many of you know Bernice Schneider, our amazing administrative assistant in the mayor's office. Bernice traveled to Mexico last week to be with her mother, who was undergoing surgery. Rosa Noriega de la Villa made it through the procedure, but unexpectedly passed away yesterday. I would like to pass along to Bernice and her family, including her two sons, Sam and Alex, as well as Sean, heartfelt condolences. We love you, Bernice, and I know personally how painful it is to lose your mum. We are here for you. We could just take a little moment of silence for her mum, because we all love our mums, right? Thank you. I'd also like for us to take a few moments to think about the people of Ukraine who are being unimaginably courageous in the face of a threat that few of us could fathom. An invading Russian army, armored vehicles rolling down city streets, artillery fire, missile strikes into residential neighborhoods. The invasion is audacious, but the fight the Ukrainians are waging is heroic. The international community, including the United States, have rallied in an unprecedented way to sanction Russia. The Ukrainian people are fighting bravely to preserve their independence. We have lit City Hall in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. And I want to thank Alderman Brooke Schandelmeyer for making that request last week. Let's all take a round of applause for Brooks for thinking about that, and just a little moment of silence for the unimaginable things that people are going through. We're all watching on the TV, I'm sure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Tonight, we will be voting on the resolution for the concession agreement for the Hillman Garage. None of this would be possible without some people who have spent a lot of time working and negotiating and combing through the finer points and details of this arrangement. First, I'd like to thank Robert Clark for assembling the ULI TAP, which got the ball rolling. Next, I need to acknowledge the city's consultant, who has been shepherding this through with dozens of public meetings, hundreds and hundreds of hours of work on the external and internal mechanisms that got this deal to this point. Little round of applause for Eileen Fogarty. Eileen brings a lot of knowledge to the table, but also a fierce passion for getting this so close to the finish line through the fine art of compromise. She has been masterful at explaining, adjusting, moving forward, then adjusting and explaining all over again. We want to thank you, Eileen. I need to thank David Gerald, who came on as the city's manager just after the RFP went out for this project. A little round of applause for David. David brings us, he likes being in the spotlight, you know that. David brings so much expertise and discipline to how he conducts this work. I expect this comes from his Navy training, his work in San Diego, and his more than a dozen years in Annapolis as our Director of Public Works. Thank you, David. You're a tireless champion for the city taxpayer and the capital improvement and infrastructure upgrades that enhance the everyday lives of our neighbours, businesses, and visitors. I want to thank Mike Lyles and Ashley Leonard in the law office for vetting the legal specifics and working with our outside counsel at Squire, Patton and Boggs to ensure the city is protected. Little round of applause for you guys. No, Mike likes being in the spotlight as well. And Ashley. Of course, the finance component is being handled by our award-winning Finance Director, Jody Dickinson, who simultaneously is wrapping up the city's budget, which will be introduced in 6 weeks. Jody and David have been working with Davenport and company on the financial front, protecting the city. I thank Jody for her diligence. A little round of applause for Jody. And perseverance on this project, but also because Jody has been instrumental in getting the city to a good place in a financial sense. We've not only seen our bond rating go up, but Director Dickinson also works hard to execute on the day-to-day operations. She has worked to improve the city's financial standing through transparency and her work with the council. She ensures that our income and obligations are handled in a way that continually seeks to find balance. Thank you, Director Dickinson. And finally, I'd like to give a shout out to our consultant, CBRE, for real estate and construction. This is a big deal for our city. And while we can't expect to have zero disruptions while Hillman is rebuilt, we have a plan to minimize the pain that such a vital transportation project typically brings to a community. So please check out our new website. AMRP's team created the www.accessannapolis.com, that is accessannapolis.com, to inform the public about where to park, how to get around, the small business toolkit with correspondence and social media posts for customers and employees. Again, that is www.accessannapolis.com. At the end of all of this, the new garage is going to be an amazing asset that we will be proud of. Elevators that work, imagine that. Better lighting and security, more parking spaces, stormwater controls, EV charging stations, and solar panels, a roof that we can program for events. These are the components that will serve the next generation of residents and visitors here in our wonderful city. I want you all to know that P3 as a financing mechanism have been shown to work well in other places. We are trying something that is a little new to us, but this public-private partnership arrangement is not new to the world of municipal financing. These kind of programs and partnerships have been working for city governments in other locations for the better part of 2 decades. Let's help our businesses and residents get prepared for the change this will bring for our downtown. I urge a yes vote on today's resolution. And lastly, we are welcoming back the St. Patrick's Day Parade. This was the last event in March of 2020. I like to say we had the largest St. Patrick's Day Parade in the world because the next week the whole world shut down. So before the pandemic shut down, and we hadn't had a St. Patrick's Day Parade since that, 2020. So this Sunday, everybody, starting at 1 p.m., the crack of 1 p.m., at the intersection of Amos Garrett and West Street, we'll see more than 100 entrants, parade down West Street to City Dock. Expect a lot of green on the Annapolis city streets. At the conclusion of the parade, then will be the Shamrock the Dock, which will include live music at City Dock until 7 p.m. Have a good time. drink responsibly, taxi or app or phone a friend if you need. So thank you, everybody, and let's get on with the meeting. Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is reports by committee.
See any hands? Alderman Tierney, thank you.
I'm first. Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee will be meeting this Wednesday. It has one item on the agenda, which is the electric initiative, including water and land. So I invite anyone who's interested in that to view the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We're ready to get on with the meeting. Alderman Pendle Charles, then Alderman Finlayson. That's the hands I saw go up so far.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the Public Safety Standing Committee, of course, we had a robust 2-hour presentation from our fire department back on January the 24th. We continued on February the 7th with the police department, and that was each 2 hours, and then an additional 2 hours with our police department on February the 16th. At that time, we took up 2 pieces of legislation, the sprinkler legislation, and we recommended a favorable recommendation to the entire council. Also on the aggressive panhandling legislation, we had a very in-depth conversation and discussion, and we decided that that needed a little more work. So Alderwoman Tierney was there and provided us with the foundation for an amendment. We will be having our next meeting on March the 7th. At that time, a 2-hour meeting with the Office of Emergency Management. That meeting will be at 6 o'clock. Just a couple of things that I want to reiterate to the community and the public at large. There's been a lot of discussion and a lot of angst from our community regarding the recent violence that we've had in our city. There have been many discussions, as I indicated, and we're talking about several different things, but I would suggest strongly to our public and our communities, and the police are very open to having community meetings. I would also suggest that you go on our YouTube and take a look at the 3.5-hour meeting that we had, community meeting on December the 14th. Mainly it was the Eastport Community Association, Civic Association, but there were other folks there as well. We did have the 2-hour meetings, which are 4 hours combined in January and February. A lot of questions were answered. Of course, we've had some other difficulties since then. But in the meantime, Alderwoman Tierney and I had chatted a bit with Senator Elvrith, and I'm just going to read for the public's attention what has been going on even more recently. As you recall from our last city council meeting on February 14th, on the record, I mentioned a few of these things. I indicated to Alderwoman Tierney, and we had a chat with Senator Elvrith on January the 4th regarding budgets and legislation. We also talked about recruitment. In the vein of recruitment from the police department's foundation scholarship fund, they could certainly designate one scholarship that would be for someone who has expressed a sincere interest in a career in law enforcement with APD. That would be one recruit. We would also like to enhance our APD cadet program, where a person would be elevated to an APD officer position when the time appropriately comes. Another possible recruit. Our state delegation can also use each one of their scholarships for the same purpose, for someone who is interested in pursuing a law enforcement career with APD. Therefore, each one of our 3 delegates and our 2 delegates and senator would find a candidate. That's 3 recruits. Also, we have a police officer who's a native Annapolitan who is most willing to assist with the recruitment as well. Another possible recruit. And we finally came up with a council-wide initiative that each one of our council members, as well as the mayor, would recruit one candidate from their ward who would be willing to go through the police department, Annapolis Police Department Academy, to become an Annapolis Police Department officer. As you can see, when you add it up, this would bring our recruitment level to at least 15. 15 more officers would be a great addition to our force. I vividly recall when Dallas had their mass shooting several years ago, Police Chief Brown asked, no, he begged their homegrown residents to come forward and to become a part of their police force. And not only that, but that the department would specifically assign them to the communities where they grew up, where they already had a connection and a relationship with the residents there, a community where they were already trusted. In my humble opinion, this is an ideal recruitment strategy here for Annapolis, and it is a true testimony to and true definition of community policing. Ideally, we would like for this very aggressive recruitment initiative to kick off on tomorrow, Tuesday, March the 1st, if you haven't already started, and have this completed hopefully by Friday, July the 1st, which is 4 months from now. Please keep us posted, possibly once per month. And if you can find more than one recruit in your ward or district, then that would be even better. Practically none of our wards have been immune to violence, so it is in all of our own best interest to take up this mantle as soon as we can. Also, if you find that you are having problems with recruitment from your individual ward or district, then certainly partner with a colleague if they are able to recruit too. Bottom line, we want to get to at least 15. We are free to use whatever method we believe for our individual wards to get to the word out regarding this initiative. Thank you all so very much. We're looking forward to hearing from you and the progress that you have made and will be making. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, and we certainly can work on this initiative together. But we also want to be holistic in our approach, and we're working with Annapolis Recreation and Parks on some things for our children and for our youth, some activities and some opportunities and experiences for our children. So please keep that in mind, and we all can do this together. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Alderman Pindell-Charles. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next meeting of the Rules and City Government Committee was scheduled for Friday, March the 4th. But because we have no legislation before the committee, that meeting has been canceled actually. So the next meeting of Rules and City Government will be Friday, April 1st at 1 o'clock. And that's no joke. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? I see no other hands up. Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Next item is comments by the general public.
Now, Julian, I don't have a list here. Do we have any speakers lined up?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
What? Okay. Okay. Didn't expect that. All right then, I declare comments by the general public closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Next item on the agenda is appointments, beginning with AP 4122, the appointment of Reid C. Bowman to the Heritage Commission.
So a motion to approve AP 41-22. Make a motion, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor with a show of hands say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, point of procedure before we continue.
Yes.
Is it possible to lump the appointments which all received favorable recommendations from the various committees in together?
I would like to do that, Mr. City Attorney.
Sure, I can read them all. Yep.
Second.
I don't think you need a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
AP 222, the appointment of Michael Tomasini to the Maritime Advisory Board. AP 322, the appointment of Emily Tomasini to the Recreation Advisory Board. AP 422, the appointment of Alan Miller to the Maritime Advisory Board. AP 522, the reappointment of Peter Trogdon to the Maritime Advisory Board. AP 1922, the appointment of Corey O'Mackle to the Education Commission. And AP 2022, the appointment of Jamie Weaver to the Education Committee. And now a motion would be appropriate.
Got a motion
So moved.
and a second? Okay, all those in favor with a show of hands say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Me? Okay, thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is public hearings. And there's one item, R922, Annapolis Parking Concession Agreement, Hillman Garage.
Okay. Can I just check in? So I have a list here. I will start at the top of the list. I think this, Scott Gibson is the first one. Could we bring him forward to speak, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Scott, and state your full name and address. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Scott Gibson, and I reside at 113 Williams Drive. The proposed public-private partnership offers many significant benefits, all of which were well summarized at the Finance Committee meeting, so I won't belabor them here. While there's been a lot of public discussion about parking impacts during construction, there has been less public discussion about the financial terms of this deal or its impact on transportation funding. To be clear, regardless of the financing route we choose, we know the Hillman project will reduce the amount of net parking revenue available to defray the cost of our transportation system. The city will have to start using general fund dollars to cover transportation at a time when we're also considering increasing the system's cost by adding electric ferries and eliminating fares. There has been little to no public discussion of what this will mean for taxpayers. No public discussion about what it will take for the general fund to keep transportation whole under both scenarios. No public discussion of how the general fund will absorb this expense when our less savvy budget processes have already forced tough decisions between priorities. No public discussion of what happens if the general fund can't support it. Will be a tax increase, a reduction in transportation service, ceding transportation to a regional provider, which I would argue is a good idea, or cuts elsewhere in the city's budget. I do recognize that Alderwoman Finlayson has offered an amendment on tonight's agenda that will start to raise this topic. I thank her for it, and I encourage you to adopt that amendment. It's likely that the proposed public-private partnership's ability to guard against construction overruns and to keep significant debt off the city's books is good enough of a reason to move forward with this resolution tonight. But how we do things is sometimes as important as what we do. We should be concerned that the City Council is being asked to validate a deal that was only discussed in public session for the first time last Wednesday. We should be concerned that a document providing general terms to the public on the deal so they could offer meaningful participation tonight was not made available until yesterday. This deal, perhaps to be the largest of its kind in city history, will have meaningful trade-offs, and citizens, and perhaps it's fair to say this council, have been largely kept on the sidelines. The public deserved a vibrant discussion of those trade-offs, not a series of closed sessions followed by a rush to approve in less than a week. If you are convinced that this deal falls apart if the resolution is not adopted tonight, then I'd encourage you to vote for it because of its promise to guard against risk and construction overruns. But in doing so, I would ask that you also think through how we break the cycle of decisions like this being made without meaningful public discussion. I would ask you to consider what happens here tonight and the process that was used to arrive at this vote when you reflect on the balance of power as you consider charter amendments, which are also soon in front of this council. I thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you, Scott. Next up is Michael Hepp, Senior. Please come forward. State your full name and address, please.
Mr. Mayor, we don't have Mr. Head with us.
All right. I will move down the line to Alex Pline.
He is also not here.
All right. Let's get Rick Lober on.
Mr. Lober is here.
You guys hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Rick Lober. I live at 84 Conduit Street in Annapolis. I'm the president of the Ward 1 Residents Association, but I'm testifying as an individual since our board has not had time to analyze key information just released last weekend on the Hillman Garage. I am testifying today on Resolution R-9-22 concerning the concession agreement for the Hillman Garage. We are asking that a vote on this bill be delayed for at least 30 days due to the lack of information available by the council and public to consider what will be an important 30-year agreement. While the issue is complex, our understanding of the options for the garage and city dock are as follows. Number one, do nothing. This is not acceptable given structural engineers have determined that the garage is deteriorating and soon will be unsafe. I only note this option to point out that the city receives about $2 million per year in parking revenues from the garage that go to our transportation fund. Number two, replace the garage only and deal with the city dock later. For this option, the data that we've been made aware of is having the city do it themselves through a bond offering, which we feel is feasible, will continue to generate the $2 million in yearly revenues, whereas entering a public-private partnership will only yield $1 million per year in revenues and shows $1 million disadvantage, $30 million disadvantage to the city based on a 30-year net present value analysis. We also understand that the PPP agreement now includes more street parking revenue than first anticipated. However, while doing it ourselves may make financial sense, it does not address the city dock issue, which is equally important. That leaves option three, approve the PPP for the garage city dock as proposed tonight. This project is essential, but while the PPP looked promising 2 years ago, COVID, supply chain issues, and inflation have changed that outlook. This will yield only $1 million per year as noted, and only $20 to $25 million for the city dock versus the $30 million plus hoped for. And even those lower amounts are subject to change depending on construction costs. While the MPV analysis shows break even with the city doing it themselves, this is barely considered acceptable by most financial advisors, and the city does not share in any upside revenue generated. Our primary concerns with this option are one, how is the missing $1 million per year in parking revenue made up, and how can it vary? And two, what is the likelihood of the $10 to $15 million grant that will complete the city dock, and do we have requests in place? We feel that the council and its constituents need more information in those areas before a vote is taken. If we cannot be certain here, we should deal with the garage ourselves and not in a PPP as noted above. We feel a bond for the city dock is achievable. Finally, entering a poorly conceived 30-year PPP may actually lower the city's ratings. The city must also do a better job of informing the council.
Rick, you're over 2 minutes. You're at 3 minutes now.
Okay, well, about 30 seconds. You need to do a better job informing the public. This weekend, past weekend, you issued the agreement. Last week, you issued a press release saying this was a done deal. Well, you haven't even voted on it. We really feel that the council needs to defer this decision for at least 30 days. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lober. Thank you. Next up is Bill Reid.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Bill Reid. I live on Bay Ridge Avenue in Eastport, and I am the president of the Eastport Civic Association. And this evening, I speak to you on behalf of the ECA. We join the request of the Ward 1 Residents Association President, Rick Lober, and echo the sentiments that you just heard a minute ago from Mr. Gibson in asking the City Council to postpone any final vote on this resolution for at least 30 days. Such a short continuance is essential to allow the elected representatives of our citizens to fully examine all aspects of a potential agreement that will have significant financial impacts for our city for at least the next 30 years. In addition to the important points made by Mr. Lober in his testimony, I offer the following observations in support of our request. The Finance Committee for this council was only finally able to hear details regarding the financial agreement options for Hillman Garage development 5 days ago on February the 23rd. As I watched these proceedings, I empathize with Chairwoman Tierney's initial inquiry as to what the committee was supposed to do, since it appeared that significant decisions may already have been made by the mayor's office. As the members of the committee heard testimony from the consultants for almost 3 hours, it was clear that several older persons had serious questions about the future impact of options that were not fully answered. At the conclusion of the meeting, the committee appeared to be surprised to learn that the administration had already issued a press release declaring that the agreement would be closed by the end of March. We want our elected officials to get the answers they need before they are asked to endorse an agreement option, not afterwards. R922 asked City Council to endorse an agreement when there is no agreement. There is no final draft of a full agreement or contract which the parties are prepared to sign. At best, there is a detailed outline of elements for different financing options for the city. In short, this resolution asks members of our City Council to endorse an agreement they have not yet seen. Notwithstanding the need for Council to be more deliberate in its examination of all elements of proposed agreement options, the public clearly has not had a meaningful opportunity to understand or review the proposals. 5 days is not enough for our representatives, so why would anybody believe it is enough for the people they represent? This process has been the opposite of transparency.
Bill, it is 2.5 minutes.
For the reasons cited here and those of other responsible citizens of Annapolis, give yourselves and us a chance to look at this carefully. Continue the vote for 30 days. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Chris Haley. Please come forward. Chris, state your full name and address. Thank you.
Chris Haley, 8972 Congress Place, also Director of the Study of the Legacy of Slavery at the Maryland State Archives, 350 Route Boulevard, Annapolis. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of R922. As the capital city of a border state, which remained loyal to the United States of America with liberty and justice for all, but still allowed hundreds of thousands of its citizens to remain enslaved and primarily disenfranchised for 200 plus years, Annapolis rested among waters which rippled with the division of people with divided sympathies. Among the goals financial support for the city renovation will provide is the creation of a symbol to represent a legacy circle of inclusion and diversity. This ambitious and powerful effort to enhance and improve the physical attractiveness and multifunctional efficiency of the city dock will further deliver upon the message this City Council relayed in 2007 resolution, expressing the City Council's profound regret for its role of the municipal government in maintaining and supporting the practice of slavery, which was followed with a grant to support the development of an online Blacks in Annapolis site, which continues to share proudly the contributions of its African American citizens. I encourage the 2022 City Council to stamp its legacy with the strong sign that it is proud to represent a town that now and forevermore seeks to celebrate all the lives of its multicultural constituents. Unlike other areas where proposed legislation shamefully promotes separate and unequal messages in our nation, that this City Council declare loudly that it applauds discussing the broad history and existence of all its population, be they Black, white, immigrant, straight, or gay. Annapolis commemorates an Alex Haley Day. Annapolis celebrates an Annapolis Pride Parade. Annapolis is one for all. Support of this parking concession agreement to create an improved city dock and parking garage for all of its citizens will send that message resoundingly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Mr. Mayor.
On Pendel Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to commend Mr. Haley for bringing to us, and I sent an email to all of you all as well as to Mr. Haley, for bringing to us a perspective that nobody else has ever brought to us before. And I want to congratulate him and thank him. I know this is his area of expertise. And I want to thank him for bringing something to us that no one else has brought to us before. Congratulations, Mr. Haley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for being part of the 2 years of effort that we put into this. Thank you. Next is Jim Reid. Please come forward, Jim, and state your full name and address.
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe we have Jim Reid.
Okay, do we have Joe Rubino?
I do not see him here. I thought I saw him earlier, but he might have had to leave.
Okay, can I get Kristen Peronis?
Yes, you may.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Peronis, and I'm the Executive Director of Visit Annapolis in Arundel County, located at 26 West Street. I first want to thank the mayor and the entire city council for the work you've done to date to explore options, not just with Hillman Garage, but your thoughtfulness and diligence with the entire city project and plan. I'll be brief tonight as I know a lot of people want to weigh in and you have quite a long agenda. I did provide some written testimony via the web portal for additional background. For those of you who don't know me, I've not been in my role very long at Visit Annapolis in Anne Arundel County, but what I want to share tonight is what I've learned in this short time, and really broadly speaking as it's related to the garage and the City Dock project. If you create a community where the residents are safe and happy and proud, you've created a destination where tourists want to visit. And that's a really big deal. We know the discussion tonight is about the garage, but a safe, state-of-the-art facility paves the way for transformational experiences for those who visit Annapolis. Beginning work on the construction of Hillman Garage is the linchpin in transforming the City Dock into a landscape that will not only serve Annapolis and Anne Arundel County residents, but attract visitors to our destination. That is good for hotels, restaurants, attractions, and business in general. I know that the timeline is tight and ambitious, making your vote even more critical. I want to thank you for your consideration, and I encourage you to vote favorably on Resolution R922. Thank you.
Kristen. Shelley Rowe, is Shelley Rowe here?
Yes, she is.
Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Shelley Rowe. I live at 439 Ferry Point Road. And I'm here to testify in support of passing the Annapolis Parking Concession Agreement. And in the over 20 years I lived in Annapolis, I served on the city's transportation committee. I served on 2 mayor's transportation transition teams, several comprehensive plan committees. And in all of that, we've talked endlessly about transportation and parking in the downtown area. We've talked, and frankly, we've dreamed about having a city dock that's more appealing and more compelling as a centerpiece for Annapolis. And for so many years, those reports and studies didn't seem to really lead anywhere, but perhaps they've paved the way for the opportunity that we have right now. When I think back on all those studies, there was a central core that was the same across all of them. And that is that whether we're talking about Hillman, the other garages, the parking at City Dock, the parking all along Main Street, all of those function as a system. And that system has to work together to serve our community. And in this concession agreement, we finally have an opportunity and an ability to use the Hillman Garage as the starting point, the keystone, as the first step in the fuller system and addressing it as a whole. And when I think about the Hillman Garage as a transportation engineer, I'm very pleased to see that, first of all, it provides more parking spaces and it's designed to have some flexibility to provide us with the ability to adapt for the future. It's the concession package that enables us to create a modern parking facility as part of an integrated parking and transportation approach for the city and to address the problems and save City Dock as well, and to make City Dock into a community space. In the transportation world, concession agreements have been around for a long time. I think, Mayor Buckley, you mentioned a couple of decades, and that's as long as I've been aware of concession agreements. It's been quite some time, and there's a lot of experience with them at this point. But they require a proper amount of study, and to make it a viable approach. I'm personally very pleased to see that the city has been working with experts in this field who can assess and represent the city's interest in the agreement. And I think that's really key. This concession agreement is a viable and a legitimate approach to the reconstruction of our crumbling Hillman garage. And let's be real, we've recently had a bridge that collapsed in Pittsburgh. We do not want to be on the front page the next time. And we also can use this to help address our flooding city dock. It's by leveraging this agreement that we have the chance to even imagine enjoying a beautiful new park with kids and dogs and music and the ability to really enjoy that beautiful waterfront that is so uniquely ours. And we can reclaim that space as a space for everyone. I would suggest that we have waited long enough. It's time to move forward, and I ask for your vote of yes on this agreement so that we can start now to create a vibrant, modern experience of our city for all of us. Thank you so much to the City Council and to the Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. Next up is Gary Jobson.
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks for letting me speak, and thanks also to all of you for serving on our City Council. Sometimes it might be a thankless job, but you're making progress and doing good work, so thank you for that. So I live at 10 Thompson Street. I've been on the street for 41 years, in Annapolis for 45 years, and I'm the current chair of the board of the Visit Annapolis in Anne Arundel County. And I'm also chair of the board of the Chesapeake Bay Trust. And recently I happily termed out as chair of Luminous Health. So I've been very much engaged with our community and follow all the developments that are going on. This particular project, R922, is just critical for our city. And I encourage the City Council to vote favorably to get on with the project and start construction as soon as possible. Yes, we'll lose this summer month, but we don't want to lose next summer either. So that's why we want to get going. I have sat in on all the City Dock Action Committee meetings, and I think the finance options here are excellent, well thought out. Waiting another 30 days, you'll hear the same people say, well, let's wait another 30 days. My view is to get going now. I like the plan that's going on. Annapolis is many things, as you all know. It's the capital of our state. It's an historic, iconic community. It's home to the Naval Academy, St. John's College. It's a great sailing town, I'm happy to say. It's a place that attracted my family. We grew up, our daughters grew up here. And most importantly, I think for the businesses here, it's a city that welcomes visitors. And this new garage will help welcome people, more room, and by extension, will continue on and make City Dock a very vibrant and welcoming place. So my message is to please vote favorably. And like you, I look forward to the completion of the new Hillman garage. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Gary. Susan Zeller is up next.
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe I have Susan Zeller here.
Okay, we lost a few of the speakers. Mike Tomasini, is he here?
No, sir.
All right. Eric Evans.
He is not here either.
All right. Mark Kleinschmidt.
No, sir.
Okay, well, they're all in front of on my list to speak in favor. Steve Samaras.
No, sir.
Okay. Joe Mason.
Joe Mason is here. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, Joe Mason is from Davenport.
I would be happy to speak, but I am really here to answer questions, if that's okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, then we will move on. I declare the public hearing on R-9-22 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is legislative actions. The first item is first readers, O-1022, peddlers, hawkers, and itinerant merchants, time restrictions.
Here is a motion to adopt O-10-22 on first reader.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Show of hands. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to refer O-10-22 to Economic Matters Committee. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, now we're in second readers. The first item in second readers is O-122, fire prevention code sprinkler systems.
Is there a motion to adopt O-1-22 on second reader?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. I have some amendments here. A Savage Tyranny amendment. Who would like to bring that up?
I'll move Savage Tyranny Amendment number 1.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we get some clarification?
Sure. This just it was drafted by law just to help clarify the language regarding long-term rental or I'm trying to bring it up now. Yeah, so it just further defines long-term. I don't know if people have specific questions about it. Alderwoman Tierney, do you have anything to add about this?
No, I think it was brought up at Rules in City Government. Thank you very much. That we didn't have a definition anywhere really in the code on what long-term residency is. So we wanted to delineate what that was by what we could define.
Thank you. Alderman Shannemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so for the public's clarification, we define short-term rental and therefore long-term rental, I guess, by the caveat of greater than this as 90 days or less, correct? So this would apply to anything 91 days or more, just for the public's clarification.
Thank you. No other questions? Okay, all those in favor of that amendment, say aye with a show of hands. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have a second amendment, Alderman Arnett's amendment. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this amendment, you heard Robert Clark refer to it.
Can you move the amendment, please, Alderman Arnett? Second, yep.
Sir, I move Amendment 2.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Thank you, Alderman Arnett.
So this is something that Robert Clark referred to. It's something that has its genesis long ago, at least 10 years ago. And it had to do with the beginning of when we discussed both the sprinkler revolving fund and also the wiring revolving fund. At that time, the council decided that it was important to try to encourage the development and use of the spaces above the commercial spaces, primarily, if not exclusively, in the downtown area. And we created the two funds. The sprinkler fund ended up getting funded and used. For some reason, the wiring fund did not. The wiring fund is referring to buildings downtown that have substandard wiring. It's known as knob and tube wiring. It is a public safety hazard in that it's easy for things like foil insulation or air conditioning ducts or people to fall across those wires and create at least shocks and possibly fires. And all of this legislation was stimulated because of the downtown fires. And it was thought that we need to get these buildings developed for primarily residential spaces, actually kind of romantic residential spaces. The people that run the Kerwin ice cream place, they and their daughters live above their building. And so when I noted in the legislation as presented on first reader that this fund was being removed, I started asking questions. I talked with Fire Chief Romali about this at length. The desire or the intent of this amendment is to leave that revolving fund in the code. Later on, before the Finance Committee, I will ask that we fund this and that we also, probably before Economic Matters Committee, go to some effort to let businesses downtown know that this assistance is available to them. And in conjunction with the sprinkler revolving fund, it's our hope that we will encourage more business and building owners downtown to rehab their buildings and make the space above the commercial space useful. So that is, and I want to thank Jacqueline Lee of our Office of Law for getting this to you today. I sent it to her last week, but I forgot to include it as an attachment. So I want to thank the Office of Law for getting this before you for your consideration tonight. And I hope you will honor the sentiment of the council 2 or 3 terms ago to want to see old buildings in downtown more fully developed and in the process made safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking through this, and I think there's a bit of a typo on the amendment. Instead of saying on page 2, which if you notice the first 7 items say on page 2, but I think it's supposed to be page 6 because page 2 is just listing all the code numbers. It doesn't actually mention electrical. I think it's all page 6. So I just want to verify that that's correct, I think, with the city attorney.
Mr. City Attorney, can we correct that before we vote?
Well, we'll make a note of it. I don't have the that particular one in front of me because it came at the end of the day. So I have to make a note of it and we'll make sure it's changed. Regina, could you reflect that in the motion? Could you go over that one more time, Alderman Savage?
Yeah, it references on page 2, and I think instead of page 2, it's supposed to be page 6 for all of those items listed. The first 7 references.
I think you're correct.
If we could table it, I mean, we'll
to change a page number as a technical amendment, we can take care of that for you.
Yeah, we'll take care of it. It's a technical amendment if it passes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. You are correct. That's when the discussion and the strikeouts occur is page 6. I didn't catch that.
Thank you. Alderman Turney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally respect the initiative of this and why it was implemented. As Alderman Arnett said several years ago, it was a timely issue. It was faulty wiring and a safety hazard. Therefore, we had the revolving fund, similar to the sprinkler fund. Nobody took advantage of it as well as the sprinkler fund. And so the focus of the base legislation here, we realized that to take initiative of an existing revolving fund, we had to basically legislate what you could call a mandate. You need a sprinkler, but here is the revolving fund. Here is the money to do that. And so what lessons learned is if you just put a bucket of money there saying it's here for that purpose, doesn't necessarily be utilized. It will not necessarily be utilized. And when this was brought up at Rules in City Government, and I don't have the exact language, but I know John Manasseh said Yes, but we have been doing renovations downtown. And yes, during these renovations, that faulty wiring has been replaced with no mention of financial hardship, et cetera. It's in the course of that renovation. But the main reason why I don't, with due respect, much due respect, I won't support this is that the focus right now is sprinkling 47 buildings downtown. We probably won't have enough money in the sprinkler fund in a 5-year window of time unless we continually try to replenish this. So I have trouble with the logic of introducing or reintroducing another revolving fund, which I believe is not necessary based on what I heard from the building department, that these renovations are happening, you know, when there is a certificate of occupancy request, et cetera, downtown. So my focus right now is to have a healthy and robust sprinkler revolving fund that can be financed, and that by adding not any more burden to it, and that's what I feel this amendment might do. So I yield my time and thank you very much again, Alderman Arnett, for this interest.
Thank you, Alderman Arnett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this fund was established in code, but it was never funded and it was never advertised. And I listened closely to Mr. Manessa, and he correctly stated that those people who have come in for renovations of their buildings have not asked for, and probably were not even aware that there was a possibility of getting money to do their wiring. I agree with Alderwoman Tierney. I don't think we should make rewiring compulsory as we are with sprinkling over 5 years. All I'm asking is that we not take this revolving fund out of the code, that we go to finance. I fully intend, when we're doing this budget, to ask for a small amount of money to go into this revolving fund, probably from the one-time only fund, but not that it be mandatory. And not only that, in the spirit of public safety, if we have 47 people come in and want to take advantage of the sprinkler revolving fund, I will be the first to get in line to say, let's put more money in that fund. The last thing we want is another downtown fire, whether it's caused because buildings aren't sprinkled or because buildings have substandard wiring. We do not want that. And I think that we're talking about an incredibly small amount of money for either fund. And what I would further urge, and I mentioned I'd like to go to economic matters, is that we not just leave the fund intact and put some money in the fund, that we proactively go to all of the building owners and let them know, hey, in addition to the fact that you have to sprinkle with this legislation, which again, I fully support, we want you to know that while you're at it, there's money available to help you rewire your building. And again, we're not talking about huge amounts of money. Even if all 47 came in for sprinkling and we have a handful or more, hopefully, of people coming in to rewire, the insurance that we buy by improving public safety by doing this fund versus having fires downtown, it's just a no-brainer. But I'm totally in support of the legislation. I just urge that we not take this out of it when we don't make it mandatory by leaving it in, but I would urge that we then fund it and let people know that it's available. So that's my response to the points that Alderwoman Tierney brought up.
Thank you, Alderman Chandemeyer, then Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Tierney, is your resistance to this because the wiring fund may potentially drain out the sprinkler fund sources and you're just prioritizing overall suppressant over a rewire? Is that my understanding of the resistance?
I wouldn't call it resistance. I really respect the initiative. I'm just logically, why are we reintroducing something that is sort of, I put in the category, probably a bad analogy, I put it in the category of like asbestos. You know, several years ago it was, or more than that, it was, oh my God, asbestos, and this is scary. But you know, electrical rewiring is, even though it's old, it's if you're going to renovate anything downtown, you know that that's part of the drill, that you're going to have to replace this wiring. So I don't see, and it might be my own problem on why we're identifying a fund to help with that effort. You know, unless this is something totally like, okay, Alderman Arnett is saying, I want everybody to rip their walls down and check and see if they have this and get rid of it. But I don't think we're there. I don't think that that's the case. I think we're way beyond that right now with the activity that's happening downtown. But hey, this isn't a deal breaker to me. You know, I'm just saying that I don't see the logic in doing it, but to no offense
So
at all.
It's a preference to keep a separate thing separate.
Yeah, there's that issue too, as far as you know how things go in Annapolis. Let's, baby steps here. We've got sprinkler. This is the objective. This is sprinkling buildings. And that's why I believe that fund on wiring was deleted. The focus here is on sprinkle the building. And the logic is in that renovation. If there is renovation, when they sprinkle the building, when they come across that wiring, it will come out anyway. So, and yes, the other issue of supporting the funding when I don't know if it has deemed as financial hardship. It might have 7 years ago, but I don't believe that's the case today.
And I have one more piggyback question for the amendment sponsor, Mr. Mayor, if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett, so in regards to wanting to add this into the sprinkler fund, is this just do you see this as a way to potentially spur more renovation of these top properties by going, here are some major projects, the city has resources for you, and you're just trying to keep that a little more publicized, I suppose would be the word?
So first of all, this isn't reintroducing anything. I'm arguing we don't expunge something that's already in the code as a separate fund. And no, I'm not urging that it be introduced as part of the sprinkler fund. I think it has validity in its own right and is a separate problem. And largely it's a problem where you do not have to tear down walls. This is largely wiring that is up in the attic, the very top space of these buildings. And that's where you tend to run air conditioning, metal pipes, and where you tend to put in foil back insulation. And that's where the problem of things falling onto these knob and tube wiring systems. I think the worst possible thing that could happen is we maintain this fund and we advertise it and nobody uses it. Other than that, if anybody uses it, particularly somebody who's saying, gee, I've got to sprinkle and I've got to rewire in order to get my permit, the city ought to help me. One of them, you're demanding I do. The other, you're at least making it the money available for me to do. So I'm not urging that it be commingled with the sprinkler fund. I don't want to get in the way of the sprinkler fund. I totally support the sprinkler fund. I think it should remain in code. It should be a separate fund. It should have some money in it, and we should let people know that it's available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Then Alderman Finlayson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. I am not going to argue with a representative who represents the ward as it relates to what I should be pulling or pulling out of her legislation. That has nothing to do with me. What I will argue, though, is just the merit of this legislation and probably be the reason that I'm voting against it. I do not believe that this bill will create all of a sudden affordable housing as the sponsors and co-sponsors have insinuated. The average price of a downtown home is $2,500. I've looked it up. I've seen it. I've trekked and tried. So I'm not in favor of subsidizing a downtown business owner's renovation so that he or she could put a $2,500, 800 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment above their store. That's just not what I'm interested in. And my question would be, what other businesses do we subsidize repairs in exchange for minimal interest? Are there any other city businesses that we do so for, or would this be the first of its kind?
Is that a question to me?
It's a question to whomever could answer it.
The reason we're doing this downtown is because downtown is historic and we want to protect it at all costs. I agree with you.
Are we assuming that either A, the downtown businesses are not creating enough bankroll to do this project themselves, or are we prioritizing the downtown businesses over other businesses within the Annapolis community?
I don't think we're doing this for affordable housing. We're doing it for housing. And in fact, it might not even be housing. It could be an extension of commercial operations 2 floors above the traditional ground floor commercial enterprises downtown. All of this legislation is focused on downtown. It's focused on downtown first and foremost. And for this, I applaud Alderwoman Tierney to make downtown safe, not burn it down.
Well, Ross, my question
second
would
order.
Be, in the last 30 years, how many fires have there been downtown?
Too many, way too many, and they've been devastating. And
really, because I think in our public safety meeting they said 2.
No, there's been more than that. 2 are recent, but over time there's been more. And I don't, any more fires downtown are too many more fires downtown.
Any fires anywhere are too many fires. So why aren't we subsidizing payment for sprinklers for everybody?
Well, we are saying sprinklers for everybody. Any major renovation across the city, and there have been some in Ward 8, have had to be sprinkled if the renovation is more than 50% of the value of the home.
Did the city pay for it?
Yes.
Did they pay the city back?
In fact, Jess Packler had to pay for hers, or was faced with having to pay for it. The point of this legislation, and is very narrowly drawn to focus on the downtown areas, because that's where the knob and tube wiring is, the substandard wiring that is likely to cause fires. It would be nice if it would provide more upscale housing so that there was less pressure elsewhere and that could trickle down and we could have more. But this is all about the safety and protection of the buildings downtown.
Yeah, I get the idea of that. I think that's all fine and dandy. I support, historic Annapolis. I think it's important that we have, pay some homage to the history of this city. I just don't think it's popular apparently it's been done before. I just would hate to be in the business of paying for the sprinkler systems for businesses to only go on and create non-affordable housing, or at worst, expand their businesses and they get richer while not paying a higher interest rate. So I'm not interested in that at all, but I appreciate the attempt though.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. It's a loan and not a grant, right?
Well, I said that it would still have to be paid back without interest, correct?
I think it's low interest. Alderman Tierney.
Low interest, without interest. They could have went to a bank.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to be clear. This legislation takes out the existing electrical assistance revolving fund. Is that correct? Yes.
For me? Yes.
So the fund exists today, even though it has not been accessed. It already exists today. So there is an opportunity. We mentioned in finance, or learned in finance, that the sprinkler fund has only been accessed a very few times. And partly because people may not be aware. I contend that they're probably even less aware that there is an electrical assistance fund. So I'm not clear why we would take out an advantage for the residents or for the businesses when it already exists. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question first, and then I have two comments. My first question is directed to our city manager and our finance director. Is there some impediment? I would assume not, but I just need to know, to having this amendment added within this ordinance, financially or logistically or anything like that?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
I don't, there's no impediment. The language for the electrical assistance revolving fund is already there. It's just that it's never been established or funded. It's never been established in the accounting system, and we've never set aside any funds for it. And so if these changes that are recommended just reinstate that language about the electrical assistance fund. Any action to put funds into the electrical assistance revolving fund will require a budget amendment or a budget action by the council. So there's no impediment to doing this language.
Okay, thank you. The two comments I want to make. Number one, I communicated with Chief O'Malley regarding his take on it. And obviously, Alderman Arnett indicated that he communicated with him as well. And it sees no harm in having this. Could be a benefit, in fact, possibly. The other thing is, as the council's public safety chair, I will have to vote for this amendment. I think based on the number of fires we've had and what we're trying to accomplish here, don't want to have nowhere in the city a problem with public safety. And I'm going to look at it as the public safety chair for this amendment. Thank you.
Now, before we go into another round here, we could just vote on this because I think everybody knows their position. So Alderman Channelmeyer was next up.
I think my question was going to address the bill as a whole for my colleague who was expressing hesitation for the legislation as a whole. So I will withdraw my questions or comments on this amendment.
Thank you, Alderman Savage and Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly on the amendment, I don't see any harm in passing the amendment and keeping the electrical fund in there. I mean, if we change our minds, we can always take it out as separate legislation, but I don't think we quite have consensus as far as taking it out at this time.
Thank you, Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your time. Just for clarification before we vote. So in the future, if any other businesses are in trouble with any structural or physical damages, will we set aside a fund for them to repair their buildings, infrastructure, whatever it be? Maybe it's a restaurant, maybe the grease trap went bad or the stove went bad. Grease traps are expensive. Do we have a fund set aside for that? I think we do, but I'm not sure if it's funded so that restaurants can apply, get the grease trap installed, and pay it back with no interest.
Mr. Mayor, that question is not germane to the motion. You've got a motion on the floor.
It does obtain to the motion because I'm asking, do we do the same for other businesses? And if that obtains directly to what we're about to vote on.
There are restaurants in the historic district. I think this is historic district specific.
But I'm asking, outside of the historic district, would other businesses have the same opportunities to improve the quality of their buildings or business by accepting dollars from the city and paying back minimal interest, minimal or no interest?
we can research that for you and get back to you, Alderman Gay. Jody, you have some answers on that? Sorry, I see your hand up. Director Dickinson.
I just wanted to clarify that the way it's written currently, the sprinkler fund is available to all buildings. And let me see if I can find it all. Read it as it exists. The Sprinkler Assistance Revolving Fund will operate by making low-cost loans to developers or property owners of older buildings that do not currently have sprinkler systems installed at the time of application. The Electrical Assistance Revolving Fund will operate by making low-cost loans to developers or property owners of older buildings in the historic district. So the electrical is limited to the historic district, but there's no language restricting the use of the sprinklers in other areas as it's written.
Thank you, Director Dickinson. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor with a show of hands say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Respectively, no.
Thank you. Motion passes. Is there a motion to amend O-1-22 on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor with a show of hands say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to vote on whether this amendment is substantive? Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt O-1-22 as amended on second reader?
Just a quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, we got a second. Yep, Alderman Gay.
Wouldn't this be a substantive amendment if I'm understanding correctly, Jody said that funds would have to be set aside, even though the program was established, funds had never been previously set aside. Wouldn't this be substantive amendments, considering it would have to be a budget amendment and funds would have to be allocated for this program or not?
Director Dickinson.
By reestablishing the language of the fund's existence, it will not require you to put money in the fund. If the council wants to later provide money for this purpose, you would have to take budget action, but there's no requirement that you put funds aside.
But the assumption is that there would be funds set aside in the budget, considering the language was reintroduced? No, I see Mr. Lyle saying that. Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry, Alderman Shanamai, I'm sorry, didn't see your hand up there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could try to do a last-minute pitch to my colleague in Ward 6 on some of his hesitation for this. Regarding overall housing affordability costs, we're all aware that a apartment right in the heart of downtown, historic downtown, probably is out of the financial reach for most families. But as Alderman Arnett stated, there is a lot of academic literature that shows what's called the filtering down effect, that taking off pressure from existing housing units, which would then kind of keep going down and help overall affordability costs in the city as a whole. As you know, we have this housing crisis because there is an overall lack of housing, and a lot of literature ranging from The Affordable City by Shane Phillips to a recent study out of the University of Hamburg, which shows that increasing supply, even in these smaller amounts, can have a very positive effect overall. So yes, these final units may not be affordable, but that will spill. Hey, Ross with the strong towns. I knew I'd get him to quote it. What I would say is that while these final costs will not be attainable for a lot of families, it will have this spillover effect that can spread out more and more. So I would encourage you to support this.
Just quickly, I just would encourage you, and I think that is a great mindset to look at if you are maybe a trust fund family whose parents giving you a couple $100,000 to look at a first home. It's just not realistic. We had the same thought and process with the short-term rentals that, let's, create this system where housing affordability will have to be forced in place and then people will rent their houses at low market. It's just not going to happen. And I'm not falling for that again. And I don't think, when you look online, go look online right now, you'll see a house that is just above the subway that's for $2,500. One
I have a fun
bedroom,
story about that subway apartment.
865 square feet. I know you probably lived there, and I hope it wasn't $2,500 when you first lived there. That's insane. And I just don't think this bill will help it. And that's what, I've been talked to about it. So that's why I'm out, and let's just get to the vote.
Thank you, Alderman Tierney.
Yes, I'm sorry, I must say this. And because Chief O'Malley and I spoke about this, there is not this bill does not address affordable housing or housing initiative at all. It is strictly a program for promoting sprinkler of building, as Alderman Arnett said. And I don't want it to be misconstrued that this is actually going to give us housing. It is hoped that it will activate, for lack of a better word, the upper floors of these buildings downtown. It is hoped that perhaps that can be some other adaptive use other than a vacant floor. So I just had to be clear about that, because this discussion has morphed into housing, and it shouldn't. It's irrelevant to the legislation as it's written. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a first and a second to adopt O-1-22 as amended on second reader. All those in favor say aye with a show of hands. Aye. Opposed? Okay, one opposed. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt O-1-22 on third reader?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Yes.
Alderman Chandelmeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay? Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
And that motion carries.
Oh, thank you so much. That's huge. Thank you so much.
The City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is O-322, new Singular Wireless PCS LLC lease agreement.
Is there a motion to adopt this, please? O-3-22 on second reader.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I see we have one amendment here. Alderman Tierney, if you'd like to.
Yes, I move Amendment 1.
Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Yeah. Alderman Tierney.
Well, I hope Robert Clark is still listening, because this is to address the cable pornography that exists on the existing poles. This is the only legal way that we don't have a compounded error, if you will, that they don't apply this to a pole that's cluttered with wires. All we could do legally was ask for the respective vendor to notify us that there are existing loose wires, cabling is the word, that's looped around, and so that we can address that company to come in and remove that cable wiring, because they could be different companies, et cetera. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I strongly support this amendment. I wish we could make it more broad. We have, I think, probably tens of thousands of dollars of copper wiring spooled around all of our telephone poles. It's unsightly, and I certainly applaud this amendment.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment O-3-22 on second reader, say aye with a show of hands. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Is there a motion to vote on whether this is substantive? I think so. Is there a motion to adopt O-3-22 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor with a show of hands say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt O-3-22 on third reader?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Chandelmeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay,
Aye.
Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney,
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles,
Aye.
and Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is 0522, Public Services, Water and Sewer.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt O-5-22?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor with a show of hands say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt O-5-22 on third reader?
So moved.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley,
Aye.
Alderman Saddlemeyer,
Aye.
Alderman Gay, Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney,
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles,
Aye.
and Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is 0722, Rental Operators License.
Is there a motion to adopt O-7-22 on second reader?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor with a show of hands
Mr.
say
Mayor.
aye. Oh, Alderman Gay.
Now, just for clarification, is this trying to require that an individual, so that you have to have ownership of one LLC, as you can't rent out another unit or something with the other LLC? I'm confused as to the way it's written, but I recall the sponsor speaking about it. I just want clarity before I vote.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney.
Am I on? Yes. This is adding a phrase to the existing code. Sorry, I gotta get it in front of me here. I'm sorry. The existing code on short-term rentals limits operator to have only one short-term rental. This includes LLC in that definition of owner.
So it says the eligibility requirements for a short-term rental operator license are changed to include an individual and all legal entities in which an individual has ownership or benefit entry into separate legal entities that share common. So yeah, you can't have more than one?
Correct. Yeah.
What if you're a partner in a managing firm or something? Okay.
That was the sort of a compromise when the legislation was passed several years ago, the short-term rental legislation that Alderman Arnett and Alderwoman Finlayson worked on, but we just had to add LLCs, including in the definition of owner.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett.
Well, I think Woman Tierney just said it well. Back years ago when we were working on this, the agreement was that we wanted to limit in Annapolis the ownership of short-term rentals to one per customer. That's pretty straightforward when you have a property owner that's owning the property. They're the owner of record. But when you get into establishing these limited partnerships and other forms of ownership, it wasn't so clear. This legislation is an attempt to make that clearer, and I think it does. And and it is consistent with the original compromise. And that's why I will be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to adopt O-7-22 on second reader. All those in favor of the show of hands say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So a motion to adopt O-7-22 on third reader.
So move.
Get a second.
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Yes.
Alderman Shannon-Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
No.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes.
Thank
We're
you.
wondering where Alderman Payon moved. Now he lives in Ward 6.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Sir, the next item on the agenda is R3421, fiscal year 2022 fees schedule, building code.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R-34-21 on second reader?
So moved.
And a second, please. Thank you. We have a proposed amendments by the Finance Committee, amendments 1 and 2. Who would like to move those?
I'll move them.
Second.
Alderman Tierney?
I was going to have my esteemed colleague on the Finance Committee it wasn't, I believe it was Alderwoman O'Neill that suggested this amendment. So if she would like to address it.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Sure.
I suggested this because I feel like there are many projects that are going on in our city that are small dollar amount projects. For instance, replacing of hand railings on front stoops. That are going unpermitted because it was costing more for the permit than it was for the actual project to be completed. In the hopes of having more people permit compliant, we wanted to address a smaller amount fee for those projects under 500.
Okay, right. Sounds good. Alderman Savage.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the committee and Alderwoman O'Neill for putting this together. I received quite a bit of feedback from my constituents that they wanted something like this to put in a smaller fee amount. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I see no more discussion. So we have a motion to amend R-34-21 on second reader and a second. All those in favor with a show of hands say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R-34-21 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
So moved.
Got to get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor with a show of hands. Sorry, Alderman Gay.
Yeah, because I'm so confused here. I'm looking at the staff report. Your objective is to decrease the cost for families or for smaller projects, right? Which would be more middle-class projects. You just mentioned the hand railing. Am I reading the staff report incorrectly, or maybe Alderwoman O'Neill, you could walk me through what I'm misinterpreting. Additionally, the fee for filing an appeal to the Board of Appeals will increase from $250 to $450 to reflect the increased staff cost of managing these processes. So it's actually increasing the cost to $200 for the Board of Appeals, and there will be increasing the fee because it says there is no fee for work with an estimated value below $500.
I think the city manager can clarify for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Mayor. So when this legislation was originally introduced, it was to close a gap for charging fees for projects under $500. So prior to this, there were no fees applied for projects under $500. So went to the Finance Committee, and those fees were going to be as much as projects up to $20,000. So when this went to Finance, the amendment changes the amount that will be charged to those smaller projects. It decreases the amount from what was originally proposed in this resolution.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Please make that clear in the staff report, because as it reads, it looks as if it's going up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All those in favor with a show of hands say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R-34-21 as amended? Oh, sorry. Do I need a roll call on that? Sorry, Regina. Should I have done a roll call?
No No problem. Mayor Buckley,
Aye.
Alderman Shannemeyer,
Aye.
Alderman Gay, Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney,
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendel Charles,
Aye.
and Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
And that resolution passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R822, Public Safety, Distribution of Literature to Purchasers of Guns or Ammunition.
Is there a motion to adopt R-8-22 on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I think Alderman Arnett said he wanted to be added as a co-sponsor.
That is correct. I just raised my hand. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you, Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
Thank you all. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley,
Aye.
Alderman Shannemeyer,
Aye.
Alderman Gay,
Aye.
Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney,
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendel Charles,
Aye.
and Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
And that resolution passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R922, Annapolis Parking Concession Agreement, Bowman Garage.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R-9-22 on second reader?
So moved.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Can I get Alderman Finlayson has Amendment 1, if you'd like to move that. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure you all have heard me speak of my concerns about transit and how it will be impacted by this agreement. And so this amendment speaks to, and I hope you all have a copy of it in front of you, speaks to assuring that we will find funding to continue to fund transit at the current level. And that means without reducing service to our residents.
I second the amendment.
Thank you. Alderman Gay.
I have 2 points. Obviously, Sheila, I talked to you about an amendment last week as it relates to transit dollars. I thought this amendment should have been had a little more teeth, maybe with a dollar amount. I know I just threw out 2 million because I'll see the concession was 25, and I thought we could take 2 to supplement maybe short-term transit projects. I will support you on this so we could get, obviously through discussion, maybe talk about a potential number, because as it reads, I know this staff and I'm not really sure that it will turn into us actually finding transit dollars. It'll turn into, well, it was recommended by the council, but it was never stated clearly. So I would like to talk to you about that further. And then secondly, would it make more sense, Mr. Mayor, for a point of order to have I'm not sure if it'll be heard on the floor, but a vote heard as it relates to deferral of vote tonight before we get too deep into discussion on this legislation? I know that was a popular trend in the public comment to push this back 30 days, up to 30 days or 30 days.
Well, Mr. City Attorney, I mean, no one is proposing that, but I see.
You've got a motion on the floor, sir, to pass the amendment. And that's the motion.
So we can move through these 2 amendments and then we can come back to you, Alderman Gay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the Finlayson Amendment 1 with a show of hands say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say no. Thank you. Is that Alderman Tierney opposed or?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Amendment number 2, Alderman Tierney, please move that.
I move Amendment 2.
Can we get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Alderman Tierney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just say this, I do support the financial arrangement of the P3. I support the project moving forward, but this amendment is an attempt to address the exposure of an unexecuted D&C contract with what the agreement or the outline of the agreement defines as design and construction. The overview, I understand, states the D&C contract as an annex to the concession agreement. And I can't, in good conscience, support a document referring to a document that defines key components such as impacts to revenue, scope increases, and risk allocation without knowing the terms of that agreement. So I offered this amendment with the hope that during discussion, there is some assurance that the risk of not knowing the terms of the D&C contract is addressed. And I look forward to that discussion.
Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, so just to be clear about how this structure is set up, the design construction contract is between the developer and Whiting Turner. It's not between Whiting Turner and the city.
Correct.
So all of the risk allocation between the developer and the city is in the concession agreement. As Alderman Tierney mentioned, the design construct contract with Whiting Turner will be an appendix to the concession agreement, but it won't be, the city won't be a party to it. So what's really key here is the risk allocation that's in the concession agreement, since that's the only agreement that the city has is between us and the developer, because we're just not a party to Whiting Turner.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
The city manager expressed it correctly, but just to add a finer point on it, the reason that the council's move here must be met with some caution is because we do not have what's called privity of contract between us and whoever designs and does the D&C for the contract for the developer, the company that's taking all the risk. To the extent that the council invades, intrudes, wraps itself around that D&C contract, even by implication, should something go wrong, we then shift the risk back to us. So I just ask that the council be very cautious to go into areas that are clearly, we've shifted the liability under the concession agreement, and we don't want to get that liability back onto us just because we think we want to control that agreement that really we're not a party to. Just be cautious.
And so, Mr. City Attorney, is that legally sufficient, the way it's written? Or?
Well, we amended it, revised it with the word support as opposed to approve. Support makes it more legally sufficient than not. However, the comment was made about us determining, impacting, influencing this third-party agreement. And so my comments were directed at council comments, because if that goes south for whatever reason between those parties, we don't want the council to be brought into that matter. And so even our conduct and our conversation in open meeting, implicates us. So I'm just asking for caution as we talk about it. So one of the reasons why we ask and try to keep the council separate from contractual procurement matters, because you don't want the council to be brought in and be deposed and on the witness stand and sued individually in your personal capacity or in your professional capacity in any way. We try to keep you from that. So we've designed this agreement so that all of the risk is in the concession agreement. The other agreements are the third-party agreements that AMRP is going to undertake, and we've shifted that risk to them. And so just to be cautious, not only in our conduct in resolutions, but also in our conversation in open meeting.
Thank you, Alderman Tierney, and then Alderman Finlayson.
Again, let me preface this by saying I am in support of the financial framework that was presented to us and of this P3 agreement. But you open the door to this concern by sending us the outline of a concession agreement that refers to another agreement that addresses concerns that should be ours, such as risk allocation and revenue. I believe, specifically in supervening events, it speaks to the guaranteed maximum price. It speaks to the CNA contract where risk is flowed down to. So I don't know how I would feel comfortable agreeing to an agreement, an unexecuted agreement that's referencing as an attachment another unexecuted agreement that involves risk to the city. I think it's a tough position that you're putting us in. I just want the public to know that we are supposed to support an agreement. It's not necessarily agreeing. It's not whether we support the public-private partnership or the financial framework of it. I could support that, but I in good conscience, I cannot support an unexecuted contract where the terms are not clearly defined. I've been on the other side of this where the GMP can qualify out the risk that is asked of them. So then what happens? So I just want assurance that, and I would withdraw this amendment if you say to me, well, despite what the C&M contract says, the unexecuted C&M contract says, the city does not have risk, that it is covered regardless if the C&M contractor excludes the risk assumed of them, that the city is covered.
Our risk is contained in the concession agreement.
I'm sorry, sir?
All of our risk is contained and spelled out in the concession agreement.
As outlined?
It is limited by the concession agreement. It's not expanded by the concession agreement. It's limited.
Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, so I know Alderwoman Tierney understands construction contracts and how every construction contract has subcontracts associated with it. And the contract between the city and construction contractors addresses only the relationship between the prime and the city. It doesn't address all of those subcontracts that are part of and necessary for and contain risk in the construction project. This is very similar to that. Our deal is with the developer, just like our deal for construction contracts is with the prime. All of the risk is allocated in the construction contract between the prime and the city. Likewise, it's between the city and the developer here. How the developer wants to deal with those risks with their subcontractors is really their business, right? They need to determine how the risks that are allocated to them as part of the concession agreement are dealt with. And they certainly put a lot of those risks on the design builder, but that's not, we're not party to that arrangement. So that's between those two, and our risk is allocated with the developer.
I understand that. I think again, you open the door to the council by having this outline where the risk is allocated, and that language is very, the language under supervening events is can be misconstrued on what risk is carried by the city, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're telling me that the risk, regardless if it's carried by and flowed down to the general contractor, you're telling me that the risk is under AMRP, regardless if the CM qualifies it out. Is that what I'm hearing? That the AMRP is responsible for the risk, if the C&M contractor comes back and says, well, I'm excluding hazardous material, I'm excluding change in law, I'm excluding force majeure, I'm excluding injunction, I'm excluding delays, I'm excluding failures, I'm excluding all that, AMRP will cover that.
That's correct. All of the risk allocation is in the concession agreement between us. So anything that's allocated to the developer, they can flow it down or not flow it down however they want to see fit.
Understood.
But it's all addressed in the concession agreement.
I'm not sure what you mean when you say it's all addressed. All addressed in our interest? All addressed could you make the statement that AMRP is carrying the entire risk of this project if the C&M contract goes sour?
No, we can't say that.
Okay.
There's certain risks that necessarily has to stay with the city. We can't.
Right. Oh, no, I mean as defined by the risks as defined by the agreement that should be carried by the C&M. If those go south, AMRP will, as you said, the agreement between those two is between them and not us, but I don't want it to come back to us.
It won't.
Okay, thank you, sir. So then I look for you for advice, Mr. Lyles, on how I can withdraw this amendment.
Well, there's a motion and a second, so it's pretty much on the, the movement can withdraw. Who moved? Did you move it?
Yeah, I just did
Okay.
one movement.
And who was the second, if the second agrees to withdraw?
I believe I was, Mr. City Attorney.
So if the movement, the second agrees to withdraw, then
I will agree with the withdrawing.
So now, Mr. Mayor, you just have the one Finlayson amendment before you on the resolution.
Okay, so all we have is the Finlayson amendment number 1 to R-9-22. Let's see, let's take a vote on that, please. I won't be going to Alderman Gay. I won't be going to Alderman Arnett because we no longer have the Tierney Amendment on the floor. Thank you. All those in favor with show of hands say aye. Aye.
Point of information, Mr. Mayor. Are we voting on R9 as amended now?
We are voting on, yes.
Okay.
We're voting on the motion to amend it with the one amendment, that is all, to R-9-22. So I'll do that again.
You have to call the roll, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
motion to adopt as amended.
Point of order.
I think
I'm not sure there was a vote on the amendment. Could City Clerk?
Yes, there was a vote on the Finlayson amendment. It passed 8-1.
Yes.
So that amendment passed. Okay. So now we're at the adopt R-9-22 as amended is the vote, and that needs to be a roll call, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay. Alderman Gay, I think have we moved that? Let's move that. A motion as amended. We get a first and a second. Do we have that? Okay. I see
a motion. You need a motion first, Mr. Mayor.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I see 2 hands up for discussion. Alderman Gay, then Alderman Arnett.
I think Mr. City Manager had his hand up for something.
Would you like to go first, Mr. City Manager?
If I could just kind of frame the discussion a little bit about where we are and some of the issues associated with this, I would appreciate that, Mayor. So as far as
are we on the amendment or are we on the overall legislation?
The overall legislation.
As amended.
What's amendment, right? So until the financial close for this concession agreement, there's going to continue to be some uncertainty. So in this this period between now and financial close, we continue to work on the finances for this project. So we've kept our, we're looking for additional options to include the financing, the concession payment and the annual payment and the revenues. We've kept our financial team, which includes CBRE, Davenport, the members of the City Dock Action Committee, finance team, and others looking at this agreement and working on the agreement to see if it's possible to improve it. And we have that ability to do that up until almost the very end of this process when it goes to Morgan Stanley for the financing. So I wanted to emphasize that the numbers in here are not a done deal. They're not going to be irrespective of our continuing efforts to improve it, because until financial closure, we won't know what the interest rates are, and that's a big determinant for this project. But we are continuing to work on options to improve the deal. As far as the delay of the project, because I know that's going to come up. So our concerns about delaying the project are basically threefold. One is that interest rates are increasing. The Fed is increasing the interest rates to respond to inflation. So we know that interest rates are going to increase through the rest of this year. So we're concerned about the interest rates increasing. We also know that construction costs with inflation are increasing. So again, 30 days may not seem like much, but it will cause an increase in the construction costs. Probably last and most important is the schedule consideration. We really hope to get this project completed. It's a 14-month project, and we hope to get it completed before the summer of 2023. And as we continue to push it back week by week and even up to a month, that pushes the construction into the summer of next year. That's a big issue for our businesses downtown. So that's something that we hope to avoid. Just a quick note about how the parking revenues work, and Director Dickinson may want to add on to this, but there's been a lot of statements that these revenues flow directly to the transportation fund, and that's not quite correct. So the way it works is that there's both a parking fund, a parking enterprise fund, and a transportation enterprise fund. The parking revenues flow to the parking enterprise fund. If there's a surplus of funds in the parking fund, then those can be made available to the transportation fund if it has a deficit, which it normally does. But just to be clear, the money doesn't flow directly from the parking revenues to the transportation fund. It only happens at the end of the year if there is a surplus of parking funds, and only if there's a deficit in the transportation funds. Then the transportation funds, if they're sufficient, close the gap, close the deficit. So for the last couple of years, when parking revenues have been down because of COVID, there hasn't been a surplus of parking funds. We certainly expect that there will be in the future as parking revenues increase again, but that's sort of the way that the revenue flows is to a parking enterprise fund, and then to transportation only if there's a surplus. So Director Dickinson, do you want to add any additional information to that?
So not to that point, although that's all true. There was a statement made that we don't get any upside on revenue. That was one of the comments that came in early during the public hearing. The $1 million that we expect annually from the P3 is net of expenses. Parking revenues come in. We pay they pay operating expenses for the garage. They pay all the debt service related to this deal. And then we get what they call the bottom of the waterfall. What's left comes to us. So if the parking revenues overperform and we get more, it will trickle down to us. So there is an upside if there are more parking revenues than projected. And in all good circumstances, the parking study that created those projections has been very conservative. So we may in fact have some upside revenues. That's all I wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. And Mr. City Attorney Molyneux, I'm just going to have to get some clarification from the City Attorney here. We got a first and a second on this as amended, but I believe you wanted to move something as well. Am I right?
I have questions first. I mean, this is all pretty redundant, I feel.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Thank you. Because I'm leaning a little bit more towards your P3 agreement, but I still have a few questions. He just mentioned that a subsidy would only be sent to transportation if, based on the waterfall chart and that chart on page 7 that I've seen from Davenport, I was under the impression that net income was going directly to the transit fund. So really there wouldn't be a need for an amendment to find additional funds in the for the transit fund. But what I'm being told now is that that's not true. It goes first to an enterprise fund, and then if there's anything left over, it goes to a transit fund.
Mr. City Manager or Director Dickinson? Yes, so the $1 million that we're talking about is the $1 million from these parking revenues, and what we have talked about and what the plan is, and this is completely up to the council to decide because you appropriate the funds and decide where the funds are going to go, is that $1 million would be dedicated to transit. So it wouldn't flow through the normal path for the parking revenues. It would flow directly to transit.
And that additional dollars, I mean, so really we aren't getting anything spectacular here as it relates to outside transit. I mean, it will still be the same transit facing the same deficit. Am I understanding that correctly? The concession at this moment is going totally to the city dock, or at least that's the belief. And so we'd be really relying on the net income to handle transit expenses.
So the concession payment, Mayor, should I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So this project was always put together as a P3 with both Hillman Garage and City Dock because of the opportunity to use the concession payment to pay for City Dock. So again, that's a one-time revenue. What's needed for transportation is a recurring annual revenue source, and that's why we have added this $1 million a year from the revenues to go towards transportation. That wasn't part of the original proposal from AMRP. It was just the concession payments, and then a waterfall of any funds that are left over. So we've carved out the $1 million for transit that will flow directly to them, and honestly, that's more valuable than a one-time share of the concession payment.
I mean, I assume so. I guess it's over time. Nobody has been able to put an exact dollar amount on if we were to defer this for 15 days with a public hearing in between, or 30 days with a public hearing in between. What is an exact dollar amount on that? It's nice to hear that, yes, we believe that costs will rise. Obviously, I've seen that with the Public Works project, but I need a dollar amount on what or how would the project fare if we were to defer 15 days with an option for a second public hearing as the public doesn't feel that they've officially been included in this process?
That's virtually impossible to estimate because we have no ideas between now and a month from now or 15 days from now what the interest rates are going to do, what the construction costs are going to do. We think that the trend is upward, but your guess would be as good as mine on what that total dollar amount would be. That would be just completely a guess.
Okay, I guess, and just lastly, before everybody cycles through questions again, the one upside that I did see in this, obviously looking at it, and I talked to a number of people about the risk assets and all that stuff. I mean, it's very clear that if we go with the first scenario, it says City Dock Go Debt Services, 2024, $609,924. as opposed to $1,803,550 plus the $1,929,424 that we'd had to take out for the city dock. Obviously, the P3 scenario is more attractive. I just don't feel that we've had enough time to efficiently discuss it. I'm also very, very worried about equity in this project. I feel it's been grossly overlooked throughout the entire process. And so that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Annette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make crystal clear in my mind that what we're about to vote on is what is contained on page 2 of the resolution, which is that the council fully supports the execution of an Annapolis parking concession agreement. We're not, as was stated in an editorial in the Capitol, voting on the concession agreement. In fact, a secondary question I have is, do we even have a concession agreement? We received Sunday an outline of things that would go in there, all of which looks pretty good to me, including on page 4, I think we had things that were speaking to subordinating events, which were questions that Alderman Tierney raised, but we're not voting on the concession agreement itself. And in fact, what we were given Sunday doesn't look to me like it's a concession agreement. It looks to me like the outline, but there's nothing here that has signature lines and things like that. So what we're voting on tonight is our sense of all of the things that we've been hearing in both closed sessions and certainly heard in a very robust finance committee meeting, which is it's the sense of the council that we are supporting the administration to move forward to execute a concession agreement. Is that a correct statement, either Mr. City Attorney or City Manager?
Mr. City Manager.
The City Attorney addressed that about.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
You are correct.
Thank you, Alderman Annette. Alderman Shannemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, I would strongly encourage you to support this resolution tonight. As we've heard, rates are going to go up in a matter of time. Materials are rapidly increasing in costs, and delaying this can have some more significant financial impacts on us. And I would also encourage us to support the P3. I am normally not a fan of these things, but the issue is we have to, one, rebuild this garage that we all know is being held together with duct tape and a prayer. And two, City Dock, as it currently stands, we take all the environmental and flooding issues aside, is such an underutilized space as it currently stands that we have to replace it from what it currently is. We've all kind of run on that. We've all shared support for that for the past 4 years. And we just don't have the money to do both unless we get creative about it. We could either raise the actual tax rate, which none of us really want to do. We could just take more debt and lose our bond rating that we worked hard to get back up, which we don't really want to do, or we can just not touch City Dock. Those are the only options that I see if we don't end up going with the P3 program. So I would encourage us to go forward and support this concession agreement, because it is the only way in my mind that I see us being able to touch both of these projects in a relatively acceptable amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, no one else. So before we take a vote and a roll call, I want to thank everybody for understanding that this process is fluid, that we've had some of the best minds in the country on this, that we put together a team that the city's never put together before. So I truly appreciate your patience, everybody. But we know two things. The water is rising, and we know that the garage is crumbling. So thank you, everybody. Madam City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Madam Clerk, is this amended or final?
This is amended, and it is the final one because it's a resolution. It is the final vote, yes. There's no 3 readings on resolutions, only on ordinances.
Oh, dang. Come back to me, please.
Okay. Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Aye.
Okay. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
Okay. Alderman Gay.
I now have the luxury to abstain as it relates to, but I'm not going to do that because, look, I want to support the project. Just get some diversity behind this, please. Yes.
Thank you. That resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R1022, itinerant merchant sales in the Historic District 2022.
Is there a motion to adopt R-10-22 on second reader?
Moved.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay. Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Aye.
And Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
And resolution passes.
May I make a comment here, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. City Attorney?
Because we are in a video presentation, a hand raise on a roll call may not be appropriate for those who are hearing impaired. So if we're calling for a roll, those who are voting need to verbalize so that the public knows what you did.
Thank you, everybody. If you could do that for us, please. Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R1122, nonprofit vendors during fall 2022 boat shows.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt R-11-22 on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Aye.
And
Can you add me as a co-sponsor, please?
Yes, ma'am. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Thank you.
Aye.
And that resolution passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R1222, racism, discrimination, and intolerance.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R-12-22 on second reader?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I thought I'd ask, I would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
I think we're all on there, I hope.
You're there.
Okay, good.
You're there.
All right, thank you.
Great. Any discussion?
The only one we don't have is Alderman Gay.
You're on there, Alderman Gay, I'm sure.
I was ready to say, yeah, I should be, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you. Okay, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderman Chandler-Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Aye.
And Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
And that resolution passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item.
Sir, the agenda has been completed.
Okay, I see a hand up for anything else for good order. Alderman Gay.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your time. 3 quick things. One, the next meeting of the Housing and Human Welfare, because I missed it earlier, will be March the 21st at 6:30. As it relates to the city dock and Hillman project, glad to support it because I thought after talking in particular to Ms. Sutherland that it was the best possible way forward. But when I say that there was a lack of diversity throughout the entire process, I really mean that. And it was almost sometimes shocking and disappointed to get on and not see faces like mine's making decisions as it relates to the project. I know we keep saying that we'll get them in through Whiting-Turner, but I really don't want Black and brown people to just be sign waving on this project. I think it's important that they be involved in much larger roles, to be quite honest. It was a very white presentation from beginning to end, including the city dock planning. So I'd like to see that. And then lastly, I'm not sure if you or any of the other staff had a chance to see the Housing and Human Welfare meeting from the 22nd. I would encourage you all looking at it. Some revealing facts made by our Department of our Office of Community Services. In particularly one, the funding that they have available, what is accessible, how can they use it, what can they use it on? The staff has stated that the resource centers are in the same exact condition as when we cut the ribbon on the first day. Not a single improvement has been made. And I think that when there are individuals saying, look, we're arresting, and this is working, I am pleased to see that we arrest people who've committed a violent crime. But when you look at the ages, it's so clear that we've abandoned investments in extracurricular activities, and that the whole purpose of us creating this Office of Community Caring Services was to invest in the social and extracurricular services that would benefit our communities. And if the staff is saying that they don't believe that has been done, and I encourage you to go look at the meeting yourself so you can hear them say it, then I think that's a problem. And I don't know if that's your plan to arrest our way out of this, but that's not my plan. I don't know if that's the city manager's plan or not. I just think it needs to be addressed. And so I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know there's going to be some constituents out there that are disappointed. We used an unusual process, an RFQ, for this whole procurement, but it wasn't irregular. What it did bring, though, was some constraints about how transparent we could be. And I am glad that we had a burst of transparency at the end. But I would like to say to constituents out there that there was an extraordinary level of effort on the part of an truly large number of people, outside experts, guiding groups, and so forth. I don't think this was done with any lightweight attention to detail. I wish we had potentially gone with an RFP, but we didn't. And so this is where we are. And I do think, as I look at it and as I analyze the materials given to us by the administration, the experts, that this is the right way to go. I'm not sure what 30 days, what new information 30 more days would chuck up, but I take the city manager's word that there is no new information. We cannot tell you how much the interest rates are going to go up or not in 30 days, how much construction costs are going to go up or not in 30 days. So in the end, while I had some sympathy for maybe taking a little bit more time, I do think the risks of doing that were not worth the additional information we might have gotten. So I want to thank the administration and all the outside experts for all the effort that they gave this, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to thank our staff, especially for all the hard work they put into this. It's not an easy task. We all listened intently to what was being said, and I think the vote tonight was a testimony to what we have listened to, what we've heard, and that we trust those who are in those positions. And as far as the interest rate going up and the cost of materials, I mean, I must say, even the devastation in Ukraine is going to impact us significantly here at home. And we cannot even begin to imagine what that's going to do for us. Just like the pandemic, only once in 100 years, who would have ever imagined? So there's some things that we just can't predict, period. And being a 67-year-old, I've seen a lot of it. But I do want to say that I agree with Alderman Gay in his assessment. But Alderman Gay, I'm going to say this to you, and I think Mr. Lyles will agree. In our profession as attorneys, when you look at a series of prolific law firms in this country, like we're dealing with now on this level, it is few and far between, if any, unfortunately, that you see any faces that look like us. This is not something unusual. Unfortunately, it's not unusual, but it's very unfortunate that that's what we see. And so, yes, I agree with you. And this has been going on. I graduated from law school in 1979, and I haven't seen a whole lot of change, at least in the legal profession. Mr. Lyles is much younger than I am, and so I'm sure he has seen some, but it's been creeping. Let's look at the current state of the Supreme Court and what we're going through right now. And there are those who are naysaying that in over 200 years, we've never had an African-American female even appointed to the Supreme Court, much less even the name has gone forth. Look at our own county as far as African-American females on the bench. Judge Morris is the first one after over 200 years. It's a creep. Unfortunately, it's a creep. But we're going to keep on pressing and pushing hard as much as we can. Our staff in the city, I think, is a good representation, but on a more global level, it's very unfortunate. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm getting messages from small business owners thanking you all for voting on this tonight, so that they have a chance of not losing next summer. They want this garage to be back online next summer, so they're thanking me. And I just wanted to give one quote from a very wise person who said, "Anyone who believes that we must know the solution to every problem that might be encountered on a journey before taking the initial step must spend a lot of time standing in the same place." So we all have to understand, nothing is a guarantee in life, but we've tried very hard, and I think we've done a good job to get to here. We know what's ahead of us. It's exciting. It's going to be great when we get to the other side. So thank you all for your support. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.